This is Keith McDaniel, and today is October the 15th of 2024, and I am at the AV studio here at Roane County High School, and today I'm talking to Carolyn Roddy. Carolyn,
Yes.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, we had you in last spring.
Yes.
When one of the students did an interview with you, but today you want to talk a little bit, and we want you to talk a little bit about Black history in Kingston and some of the important things that are significant in Kingston concerning Black history. So
Yes.
So I'm just going to listen and let you talk. If I have a question, I'll jump in.
All right. It all began on Greenwood Street, and that's across from the football field here at Roane County High School. And our neighborhood was divided into two sections. Flat, which was on Greenwood Street, and on around up until we went to the school. And then around the curve, it was called Bushtown. And we were a close-knit community. Everybody watched out for everybody, and if anybody needed anything, I just want to be able to give everybody really in Kingston and Roane County, a small glimpse of the Black history that was in Kingston. I hope for one day that I can do it for all four cities. But right now I'm concentrating on my hometown,
Right.
Kingston. I focused on, in doing Black history this time, I focused on four major areas.
Okay.
It was the school system, the education, because it's very important, the churches, for which the schools started in our churches, and our veterans. I honor and give them all the credit for going to the service and being ready to die for just little old me. And also, I focused on our business people because we had, I'll start with the business people. We had many business people that were in our community. My Uncle Goose, and everybody called him Goose, but his real name was James Goose Irving, and he had a concrete and septic tank service businesses, two of them. His wife, my Aunt Louise, which was my grandfather's sister, she was, quote unquote, the youth director for our community. We used to participate in Christmas parades, and we always won the first place trophy. She taught us a lot of things in doing things.
Let me ask you a question, though,
Okay.
right here. What time period are you talking about? You talking about the 50s, 60s, 70s era?
Yes, I'm talking
the time that you grew
from
up.
1952 until 1964 when we integrated schools.
Okay, all right.
That time period.
Right, and that was separate. I mean,
Yes, everything was still separate.
How large was the Black community in Kingston at that time?
Well,
do you know a percentage?
No, I'm not for sure.
Typically,
but
go ahead.
But I just know of the closeness that we had with one another. The number I couldn't tell you.
It was probably in the 10% range, something
Yeah.
of the total population.
It may have been more.
Which is typical for a small southern town at that time. So,
But anyway, getting back to my Uncle Goose.
who I remember, he did everybody's concrete.
Yes. But what I want people to understand, Uncle Goose played a significant part in the establishment of I-40, the I-40 project. He and a group of men in the community and some out of state men came in and worked on concrete under him.
Right.
They came in and they built the entrance and the exit ramp to Kingston for the state of Tennessee.
Is that right?
Yes. And also, my Uncle Carl Martin, he worked on the smokestacks at the steam plant.
Right.
Yeah. And I can remember him coming in telling Mama, it's awful high up there. On a scaffold, sitting out there building. But that's a part of history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, Uncle Goose did many things. He worked on all the new businesses, concrete that were here, McDonald's when it came in. I'm trying to think. Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen?
Yes. The old Food City, well, it wasn't called Food City, it was called the White Store.
The White Store, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he went as far as Tellico Plains. And back during that time, that was kind of dangerous.
Yeah, that was yeah.
But everybody loved Uncle Goose. Everybody did. And also in concrete and different things, you'll see in the display that I'm doing for the community center this month was Mr. Leander Woods. Mr. Leander Woods was in the military, and I'll get to my veterans in just a minute. But he also had a concrete service business, him and his family. But he also had a big farm. And so... Anyway, I'm trying to think of my Aunt May, Lady Mae Smith, she had a cafe right across the street from the house I was born in on Greenwood Street, and everybody came over there. Business people like Bruton Stout. We called him Crazy Legs. To this day, I don't know what the man's real name is. Crazy Leg. Mac Brown. I could go on and on and on. But we were a community. Now, can you imagine on game night, like this coming Friday, game night, and walking down to that field at this particular time, and you can't go on the inside? You can't go on the inside. You have to stand on the outside and look in. But I'm going to tell you a little trick. Those guys that played football during that time, they would get together on Saturday with our guys, sneak in the football field down there, and just have a ball playing football. I mean, it was a community.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it.
Were there other places that you couldn't go in town?
Oh, yeah. There were a lot of places. When you went into the courthouse, the old courthouse now, you saw outside, especially in the summertime, separate water containers. It wasn't a fountain. It was separate containers. And the sign said white only. And then over here under Bush Hall or whatever it was over there, it said colored only. At that particular time, we were referred to as colored.
Right.
We've been through 3 different phases right now. We were, 4 different phases. We were first Negroes, then we were colored, then we were black, and now we're African American.
Okay.
I'm just plain old Carolyn. That's all I am.
Right.
But there was Aunt May, Lady Mae's Cafe. There was the Dewdrop Inn. A lot of people know about the Dewdrop Inn. That was run by Miss Clara and Ed Green, who lived up the street.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of other businesses. Oh, Miss Lucille Klein, she had a small salon, and so did Miss Mamie Liggett has a salon. Because we couldn't go to a salon that other people went to.
But this was all in your community, wasn't it? It was
all in our community.
It was for your community.
Yes, yes, most definitely. And then I want to talk about my education.
Okay.
From kindergarten. We didn't have kindergarten, but we had first grade through 8th grade at Greenwood Elementary.
Okay.
It was first referred to in 1934 when it was established. It was referred to as Greenwood Colored School. You know, I told you we were...
Was it Greenwood Colored School or was it the Kingston Colored School?
Kingston Colored
Kingston
School. I'm
Colored.
sorry.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, it was Kingston Colored School. But all I ever knew, because I wasn't born until 1952, all I ever knew was Greenwood Elementary.
Right.
So we had a teacher, a principal, a mentor, a mother, a father, she needed to be, a disciplinarian, and that was Miss Gertrude Porter. Miss Gertrude Porter was there for every last one of her kids. From the time of her inception when she came there. Who was there before Miss Gertrude? I have no idea. But a lot of the people that have passed on and gone that were going to school with my aunts and my uncles, we all went through Greenwood.
Right.
And Miss Gertrude told me one of the things that I'll never forget. I've lived my whole life from what she said. And my mama told me the same thing, but not in the terms that Miss Gertrude told me. But Miss Gertrude told all of her kids, she said, you're getting ready to venture into a new setting. And she said, life is not always fair. You're going to have to make 2 steps to everybody else's 1. It's not fair, but you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to prove yourself beyond other folks. And I've lived my whole life. I guess that's why I'm so driven. I don't know. But she told us that. And Miss Gertrude always aimed high for us. There was no mediocre in her conversation. I remember one time I was playing the big cousin, and I took my cousin to school, Joyce Woods, but it was Joyce Klein's then. She married Larry Woods. I took her to school. I think I was in the 2nd grade, she was in the 1st grade. And we didn't have the facilities that the white schools had.
Right.
So we had paper numbers. So we had to lay them out on our desks in order from 1 to 50. Well, by the time, and Miss Gertrude would come around to make sure that everything was correct, and then you could go outside and play on the playground. Well, when she got to me, Joyce Ann, that's what we call her, Joyce, blew all my numbers off. And I just started crying. And Miss Gertrude wouldn't let me go out. Now, she could have let me go out and put the numbers back together. She said, you have to be disciplined enough to right your wrong. Turn everything that's negative in your life into a positive, somehow, some way, whatever. So I had to sit there and put the numbers back in order. And then she let me go out, and she let me stay a little bit longer than the other kids. But there's those memories like that you never forget. You never forget.
She wasn't from here, was she?
Yes, she was.
Oh, she was.
She was a Kimbrough. On her plaque, on her sign to the park, she is the only black in the community that has a park named after her.
Right.
It's Gertrude K. Porter. She married a Mr. Landon Porter from Knoxville, Tennessee, and she was a Kimbrough from out in Basiltown.
Oh.
In Harriman. So she was a Kimbrough.
Oh, okay.
So she would make kids, before we had a cafeteria, we didn't have a lot of facilities that that the white kids had.
Right.
But I want to mention Miss Sue Kinzer. She was sort of like the black school. She went around to all the black schools. She was sort of like the superintendent at that particular time.
Okay.
When I growing up, it was superintendent. It wasn't the director of schools.
Right, sure.
And
Now, was Greenwood a part of the Roane County school system?
it was, but it was separate.
Okay.
We, like, the playground that used to be here, this used to be the elementary school.
Right.
The playground that's out here, we couldn't come over here and play.
Right, right.
So Mr. William Black, who was a veteran, came home from the Army, and he owned a lot of land, a lot. He built us up, him and a few other gentlemen in the neighborhood, built us a park.
Okay.
We didn't have to want to go to the park.
Right.
We had our own park.
Right.
He took tires and pieces of wood that he cut down out of his property. We had seesaws. We had a merry-go-round. And this is all of them making all of this stuff from scratch.
Right.
We had swings. We built houses with dirt floors. And those experiences, our kids will never know anything about.
Sure.
But anyway, Miss Gertrude, getting back to the educator, she was a phenomenal educator. Because, like I said, we didn't always have a cafeteria. We didn't get new books. We got the used books from the white schools.
Right.
And Miss Kinzer said one day, she announced it to the school board, that we took better care of the books than the white kids did because we appreciated what we had.
Right.
So, Miss Gertrude, before we got a cafeteria, I'll never forget, she never let any kid go hungry. I lived, and a bunch of us lived, down the street so we could go home for lunch, but we had to be back at school for a certain period of time. But some days, we just didn't feel like going home.
Right.
So Miss Gertrude, every day that I can remember, she would go to the grocery store and get 2 loaves of bread and 2 packs of bologna. Because, see, her classroom was 1 through 4. And Mr. Powell, who was the other teacher in the 2-room schoolhouse.
Right. Sure.
It was a petition. It wasn't a door, it was a petition. And Mr. Powell had 5 through 8.
Okay.
She would fix lunch for every kid in that class, in her classroom, and even in Mr. Powell's room. She said that you're not going to go hungry. You're not going to go hungry. As long as I'm alive, you're not going to go hungry. And every day we had to take a fish oil tablet. She wanted us to be healthy. That's why I say she was a mother, mentor. She was everything that we needed, when we needed, how we needed. So I just admonish and I appreciate her so much. But we had another teacher that wasn't from Kingston, but she was the first substitute at Greenwood School that I can remember. And that was Miss Alma Fletcher.
Okay.
And she was also very special. She was a disciplinarian, but she also gave her heart to the kids, as Miss Gertrude did and Mr. Powell did.
Let me ask you a question. So integration happened in Kingston in what, 63?
No, 64.
64. Okay.
Yes.
What year were you? Did you?
Oh, I was going into the following year in 64, 65. I was going into the 6th grade.
Okay.
And I went to what they used to call Kingston Junior High.
Right.
It's now Cherokee Middle School.
Right.
But it was a big white building.
What they call
Up
it?
there on the hill.
It the Alamo.
Yeah.
It looked like the Alamo.
And Miss Hobgood was our
Miss
principal.
Hobgood. Let me ask you a question. How did the folks there at Greenwood prepare you all for that next step, for
Right.
that integration? Tell me about
Well,
that.
I've already told you what Miss Gertrude said. Now I'm going to tell you what my mama said.
Okay.
My mama said, Carolyn, and she set me down. I thought, Lord, what have I done? I hope I'm not in trouble. Lord
Right.
Jesus. So she said, Carolyn, you will not. And it was, I'm talking to you right
Yeah.
now. It wasn't abrupt. It wasn't mean or anything like that. She said, you will not go over there to that school and embarrass me. You will not go over there to that school and embarrass this community. Because our community was important to us.
Sure.
It was very important to us. Like I said, that's all we had. And she said, more importantly, you will not go over there and embarrass yourself. Because if you do, you're going to have to give an account. Now, she didn't say account.
Right.
But you're going to have to give an account to me. And I knew what that meant.
Sure.
I knew. I respected my grandmother. I tell you, more the values that I have in my life, they all came from her.
Right.
My mom, my biological mom, she was married to my dad, Grady Bush, and my mom's name was Pauline Mae Martin, but they called her Kitty,
Okay.
and she did hair. But she told me, because I was too small to remember this, but when my biological mom had me, my grandmother took me from day one,
Really?
from hour one, because she knew that my mom was not ready at that particular time, even
Right.
though she was married.
Sure.
To raise a child.
Right.
So I had been since birth, I had been with my grandmother,
Right.
who I call Mama.
Sure.
And I was raised with my two aunts. Well, really, it was four at that particular time. Aunt Barbara, Aunt Erlene, and Miss Panky, that they named the cafeteria out there at what is it, Kingston Elementary. She has the cafeteria named after her.
Is that right?
Erlene Panky Cafeteria. Yeah. There's a immense of history.
Yeah.
And your mind starts to grind. Mine does. And you try not to miss anything. But I know that I've missed some things. But
Well, let me ask you a question. What was it? Let's go back to the integration. What was that like? What was that like when you all joined?
Can you imagine a little sixth grade girl going from a two-room school where everybody looked alike, and then you get to another school that's much larger.
Oh yeah.
No one looks like you. And sometimes when you're in class and everything, you're the only one in there.
Sure.
Yes, I was skeptical. Yes, I was afraid at times, but no incidents occurred except one. And I'm not going to tell you about that one.
I grew up in Kingston. I went to Cherokee when it was an elementary school, and I went to the junior high. And the first time that I had a black student in one of my classes was in junior high. Because nobody lived out near Cherokee in our neighborhood.
No.
Okay, it's not like it is today.
Not like it is now.
Yeah.
And in that new environment,
Yeah.
immediately I thought about what Miss Gertrude said. And I had good teachers. Like I said, no one that I can remember was the incident at the junior high.
Do you remember much racism? I mean, overt racism from either the teachers or the students that you were going to school with? Because this was new to them too,
Right.
You know,
Right.
And a lot of them
At the junior high, I had one incident, like I said,
right.
that Miss Hobgood corrected right away.
Right. Okay.
And it was in a science class, and I'm not going to tell you what happened.
Sure.
But I ran out of the room, and the bell had rung, and I ran out of the room, and I was waiting on this certain person.
Sure.
And because she just kept bugging me.
Right.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Right.
And so I was wrong. I reached and grabbed her and pushed her up against the locker. I didn't slam her, I just pushed her up the locker. Well, about the time that I pushed her up against the locker, Miss Hobgood comes around the corner.
Right.
Now, this is very important.
Okay.
Miss Hobgood, after we explained our
What had
side of the
happened,
story
right.
and she told her side of the story, Miss Hobgood, we had a gym floor out in the middle of the school.
In the middle of the school, the classrooms were all the way around it.
You know them old wooden bleachers?
Oh yeah, sure.
She made us sit out there. We couldn't go to class, me and this girl. Made us sit out there on those bleachers about 4 feet apart. She said, you will sit there until you apologize to each other. Well, long about the time that school was about to be over, because I knew Mama, oh Lord, I was.
You were going to face it, weren't you?
Yeah. So, I don't remember who apologized first, but I didn't mean it.
Right, of course.
I did not mean it, and I don't think she did either. But I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So, we get home, and this girl's father walks up. Like I said, we're a small community. They knew each other.
Yeah.
And he walks up to Mama's house, and he proceeds to tell her what happened.
Right.
And Mama asked him, she said, what did your daughter say to my daughter?
Now, was this a white girl?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And Miss Hobgood had already told him,
Yeah.
we ain't always had a telephone.
Right.
So, but I'm sure she was going to tell Mama.
Yeah, sure.
But he came up and she said, well, I don't fault her for taking up for herself.
Yeah.
And so we need to leave it as that. And to this day, me and that young lady we're not the best of friends, but we're friends. But that is an experience that I hope and pray that nobody's child has to go through.
Did it get better when you got into like high school?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because I played basketball.
Of course.
And I thought, oh, Lord, I can run and jump.
You were a star.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I thought I was all that in a bag of chips.
Well, you made your own way, and you did exactly what your teacher told you to do.
Absolutely.
Be the absolute excellence. Be the best.
Well,
you could
I
be.
don't know about excellence because I'm going to tell you about an incident. I went to Roane County High School. My freshman year was 1966.
Okay.
And like I said, I could run and jump, and we played divided court.
Yeah.
So, and we played all through my high school years, we played divided court.
And was that 3
It's
on
3
3?
on 3 on each end, yeah.
Sure.
And my freshman year, first 6 weeks, my report card came out. I had 3 F's, a D, and an A, and that was in physical education.
Right.
Well, my coach, Freddie Paul Wilson, him and my mama had a good relationship. That the Lord blessed me with good coaches all through my life.
Sure.
Because my life has been like a puzzle. And different pieces have come out at the right time
Sure.
according to God's plan.
Sure.
And he came over and he told Mama about my report card.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a good chewing. I got a whooping.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Freddie Paul Wilson made me dress out for 2 weeks and come in the gym with all my books and sit there while the other girls enjoyed learning new techniques,
Sure.
skills, and everything. But here's the kicker. He would come over there. I can see him now. He would come over there every 30 minutes, tap me on my knee. Bush, you ready to play? Yeah, Coach, I'm ready. And I got ready to put my books and run up. No, you got to study and walk off. That was worse than a whooping.
Well, of course it was.
That was worse.
But you know what? He knew the importance. He knew that if you kept that up, you wouldn't be playing at all.
Right.
You wouldn't. They
Right.
wouldn't let you play at some point. You know?
Absolutely.
So he wanted to make sure that
Yes.
that you had your priorities in order.
Right. And
So-
you were talking about separatism and everything, but getting back to my grades, the next 6 weeks, I had all A's and B's.
Right.
I didn't, and I had no trouble because Mama threatened to take me off the team.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. She said,
Right.
you're not going to do this. Remember what I told you? I said, yes, ma'am. And that was all she said.
Yep.
But an incident happened my freshman year in playing ball. But Coach Wilson and Coach Skidmore had my back.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, they had my back because I was the first black to ever play at Roane County High School on their women's basketball team.
Right.
We went to a restaurant, local, because remember, everything was separate.
Sure.
It was still rough feelings and everything. And we would play a game. We had come in from somewhere, and we would stop local so that kids could get home in a decent time and everything.
Sure.
And we got ready to get off the bus, and we got to the door of this restaurant, and this lady come running up to the door, and I thought she was going to open it, said, she can't come in here. Normally, what would happen is I would have to go around to the kitchen, get my food, get back on the bus, and eat on the bus while everybody else went in and eat.
What restaurant was this, if you don't mind saying?
Coach, no, I can't.
You can't
I'm not.
say?
No, I have never told anybody.
Is that right?
Never.
But it was a local restaurant.
It was local, but I will never tell anybody. And so Coach Wilson spoke up and said, well, if she can't come in, we'll just get back on the bus and go somewhere else. And Coach Skidmore said, boys, because they let the girls out first.
Sure.
Boys, get back on the bus. Girls, get back on the bus. And we turned around and we started to get back on the bus. And she went, no, wait just a minute. She went and talked to somebody. I have no idea to this day.
Right.
And she said, you guys can come on in. And, but there was nobody out front.
Right.
We had to sit in the back of the restaurant. But that was okay, because I got to eat.
Sure, exactly.
But,
all right. So you talked a little bit about businesses. You talked about education.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the churches.
The churches. In Roane County, we had a number of churches. But in the Kingston aspect of it, we had 4 churches.
Okay.
There was Braxton Chapel, AME Zion Church, which everybody's familiar with.
Which is still there.
I wish that I had a picture of the old church, Remember the old potbelly stoves that sit in the middle of the church to keep warm, and the stovepipe going straight up.
Sure.
I wish that I had a picture, but I don't. And Reverend Roddy, Reverend Caldwell, Reverend Smith, all those ministers I can remember, but I never ever got to know Reverend Braxton, who the church is named after, and him and a bunch of community people, men, got together and built the new addition in 1945.
Okay.
And the church was first started in 1877.
Wow.
Yeah. And Mr. Braxton, Reverend Braxton, was the leader of that. But there was also Counts Chapel Church that's on Greenwood, and still, these churches are still standing today.
Right.
And
That's the
Kingston
Methodist
church. Pardon
Isn't
me?
that the Methodist church? Is it the one right next door to Greenwood?
CME.
Yeah. Right, sure.
Yes. And then there was the Kingston Church of God that was owned by Miss Reverend Gilbert Liggett and Miss Mamie Liggett, and she had her beauty shop in the back of the church.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And then in Paint Rock, I included them because they're in Kingston too, and homecomings was the best time in the world.
Sure.
Yes, and that's down in, we call it Paint Rock, but it's on the Loudon line, but it's still Roane County.
Sure.
Little church in the country is what we call it. But these churches are still standing today. And we're talking about the period of 1952 to 1964.
Right.
And it was a bit of a confusion, whereas the churches were separate.
Right.
But when you look at God, there's no separatism.
Now, did the churches ever work together on things, or not? Or did
a few
they
of them did.
Kind of keep to themselves?
My Aunt Barbara worked at First Baptist in Kingston. She worked in the nursery.
Okay.
She was the first black to work for Mr. Scott. Remember, he used to have the hotels.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right, Mr. Scott.
Yeah. So, but it was a good time. That you could go to church and Sunday school and Bible study, and they used to have what they called, it wasn't called Bible study then, it was called prayer meeting.
Prayer meeting.
In the black community.
On Wednesday night.
It was called prayer meeting.
Sure. That's what, I grew up at First Baptist Church, and when I was a kid, they called it prayer meeting on Wednesday night.
And also, we had the Buds of Promise, whereas the white community had 4-H.
Right.
We couldn't belong to 4-H. We had the Buds of Promise. We had our own little choir. We had, but when we did big events, it was all of the kids in the community.
Right.
No matter what church, one of those churches you went to, we had Christmas programs. We had Easter programs. Miss Gladys Wilker played for everybody in the church, but she was a member of Braxton.
Right.
Let's see, Mr. Reverend Gilbert Liggett, I was telling you about some of our veterans, but he is a Buffalo soldier. He was a Buffalo soldier.
Is that right?
And he fought in World War I, too.
Yeah, people that don't know what a Buffalo soldier is, tell us what that is.
A Buffalo soldier that's what America referred to black soldiers
Right.
because of their hair and their color. If you have ever seen a buffalo, you know what I'm talking about. Everything is curly, it's rough, it's
Right.
brisk, but whatever. But
Right.
It is what it
He
is.
was a Buffalo soldier.
yes, he was a buffalo soldier.
Okay.
And he was on the front lines of many different, as many of the buffalo soldiers were.
Right.
But he's not the only buffalo soldier that we had in Roane County. Mr. Clyde Jones was a buffalo soldier. And I'm sure that there's many more that I don't know anything about.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, our churches were separate, but we were together. I can't remember any harsh feelings or anything like that coming from the church,
Yeah,
from
sure.
within and from without.
Right.
But Miss Ferguson, who was a teacher at Kingston Elementary, she used to come over every August from First Baptist Church, and we would have vacation Bible school.
Is that right?
She would come over, and we would get Clorox containers.
Yep.
She made sure that we cleaned them out good and everything. They were sterilized, no bleach or anything left in it.
Sure.
And different things that I remember, the spools, the wooden sewing spools.
Yeah, sure.
Would be
Thread
the
spools.
nose. What do they call those things that would be the tail?
The pipe cleaners.
Pipe cleaners,
Yep.
yeah. Be the tails, that buttons would be the eyes.
Sure.
And we made those.
Sure.
And we thought that was the best thing ever in the world.
Sure.
Because we got to do something like the other kids got to do.
Yep.
So, but our churches were strong.
Right.
We were not sent to church. We were brought to church.
Right.
Back then.
Sure.
But now, you're good if you seeing them,
Right.
and that's sad. That's a sad statement. That's a very sad
Some
statement.
people call them Easter lilies because they only show up
Yeah.
once a year at Easter.
Yeah. Well, and they show up for Christmas too because they
Christmas.
want to show them new outfits
Oh.
out. Yeah. So
You know, I recall, and like I told you, I grew up here, and I grew up in First Baptist Kingston, and I guess I was probably 7, 8 years old, going to a business meeting at First Baptist Church with my family to vote on whether or not to let black folks join the church or attend
Yeah,
the church.
yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
that like it was
Yeah.
yesterday.
yeah.
And there were people that were there that stood up, that spoke out against it, that I'd never seen at church. They might have been a member, but they never attended. I will never forget that. So I can't imagine what it was like. I literally cannot imagine
Yeah.
what it was like for you all.
But it carried over into every aspect of our lives. Because like we've been talking about, everything was separate.
Sure.
And my mom worked for a little while at Davis Diner.
Okay.
And
In Midtown?
she was a cook there for a little while.
Right.
I don't know, I can't remember how long, but she was a cook there. And she would cook food. This is what I couldn't understand as a little child. I understand now.
Yeah.
But as a little child, she would cook food for the patrons, the white patrons, and they would eat it. But she couldn't cook anything to bring home
Right.
for us.
Right.
I mean, it's the same food.
Sure.
And if we went to Davis Diner, a lot of the blacks went to Davis Diner. We couldn't go in the front door.
Right.
You would have to go around to the back. And we were charged more money than what
The
the
white-
regular customers
Right.
were charged. And in that aspect, I just remember being a small child, walking down that street. It isn't even 800 yards.
Yeah.
And having to stand out there on the outside of the fence.
You know, I can't imagine what kind of psychological impact that would have on someone that would probably last the rest of their life, to a certain degree.
Well, certain people, it did.
Certain degree.
It did. Because it left anger.
Yeah.
It left stress.
Yeah.
Some people, they denied it.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I don't like to talk about it, but I'll tell it since we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember when a lady, I'm not going to tell you her name, and I'm not going to tell you the gentleman's name.
Sure.
But the gentleman was black and she was white.
Mm-hmm.
They fell in love.
Right.
Just like people do today.
Sure.
But I can remember the Ku Klux Klan coming in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
And my mama recognized some of the voices.
Oh, of course.
And they went to this gentleman's house because she was over there. She was staying over there with him. And the black neighborhood didn't see a problem with it.
Right.
Because they were in love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they went over there and they told her to go home.
Mm-hmm.
They let her go. But they took him down to the river and they almost beat him to death.
Right.
And he got well, but he wasn't what he was before they beat him.
Sure.
And he died soon after that.
Mm.
Yeah. But she loved him. I don't care. After the beatings, she came back.
Mm.
She took care of him.
Right.
So, but anyway, yeah.
All right, so veterans. Let's talk a little bit about veterans.
Oh, yeah.
And you talked a little bit
They hold
about
a special place in my heart.
Right.
I have researched and done a lot of research from Find a Grave in Roane County. And also, this time I focused only on Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found over 45 gentlemen and women, alive and deceased, from Kingston that went and served our country.
Okay.
Some were in the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines. But we have, buried in Braxton Chapel Cemetery, his headstone, you can't recognize it because it no longer exists.
Sure.
But through the help of Mr. Bailey, the Heritage Commission, we know that he is buried there. We don't know any information about it. I'm still trying to find out. But he was in the Spanish-American War and the Revolutionary War. His name was William Benjamin Martin. And I don't know if I'm kin to him or not.
Right.
But I am so proud of him. We also have, like I said before, Reverend Liggett, who was a Buffalo soldier. I didn't know that until I did my research this time.
Right.
We have a lot of World War I, II, Korean War. My Uncle Buddy was in the Korean War. A lot of the neighborhood guys were in the infantry, and they were on the front lines.
Right.
They were blessed to make it back home.
Sure.
But they came home with a lot of garbage.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Baggage. I won't say garbage.
Baggage.
I apologize for that. Baggage. They talked about soldiers and stuff from Vietnam having PSD and all that.
Right.
That was before the Korean War and all of that other. They had baggage of
they called it shell shock back then.
Shell shock. And Mr. William Black, who owned all of that land, he didn't have to do what he did. He was a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And he got together with the other men and everything and willing to give up your life for your country.
Right.
But they were mistreated.
Sure.
They were mistreated because we have in Roane County, I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I'm proud of the veterans.
Mm-hmm.
We have a number of Tuskegee Airmen.
Is that right?
From Oliver Springs.
Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Huh.
We have a number of Purple Hearts from Rockwood.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Wright has he's deceased now, but he was the first in Roane County to receive a Purple Heart.
Really?
Yes. And our kids, our community, our county needs to know this information. Mm-hmm. It's important because it's not a part of Black history only, it's a part of history.
Sure.
And you cannot change history.
Right.
You can be better at making new history, memories, events, and occasions, and everything. But I'm just, my heart is for the veterans.
Right.
I tell you, we were taught a lot of things, but even though they came back, some of them were alcoholics, some of them were drug addicts, some of them were depressed. I mean, really depressed,
psychologically damaged.
Yes. And but us kids were taught to respect older people. I don't care if you were in the Army or if you were a garbage collector, if you were this, that, and the other. We were taught to respect all of those people.
That's not really a priority a lot these days, is it? I had a student. I had a 14-year-old call me dude the other day.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. He said, "Come on, dude," and I was like, "First of all, I'm old enough to be your grandfather." I said, so I had to correct him. But anyway, yeah, it's...
But you grew up in the time like I did, when an older person, I don't care if they were just 3 years older than you were taught to say, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Or no, sir.
That's exactly
no, ma'am.
Right.
You better not. And that person, if you did something wrong, you didn't have to be disrespect them.
Right.
But if you did something wrong somewhere or be somewhere where you weren't supposed to be, they had permission to whip you.
From the community.
And then when we got back home, I don't know how Mama found out because, like I said, we ain't always had a telephone.
Sure.
But she knew before I even walked in the door.
Of course.
She knew what had happened.
Yep.
And you got another whooping. That's how I learned how to plait hair. Mama would always say, "Go get me some switches."
Is that right?
And the first time she whooped me, she set me down, and I thought I'd bring something in there about like that. She went out there. I never did go get that. I always got the one that she wanted after that. But she set me down, and she put those 3 sticks between my legs. And she taught me how to plait.
Right.
And I think worse than the whooping was her talking to me. This is why I'm going to whoop you.
Right.
This is why, you know that you shouldn't do that.
Right.
You know that you shouldn't do this.
Right.
But, and another thing that I really remember is that we had to be in the house when the street lights came on.
Sure.
That was for our protection.
Of course, yeah.
Because during that particular time, if black was out later than that,
Yeah.
you could get into some serious trouble.
Oh, sure, of course.
So, but I'm going to tell one more story.
Okay.
And then I'll leave you alone.
Okay, that's fine.
But I went to school, high school, with a gentleman called Austin Clark.
Yep.
And I want
He was
to
a great,
say,
great basketball player.
yeah, I want to say our community really supported us kids because they wanted us to know that they had our back.
Sure.
So when we had a home basketball game, people that didn't even have kids would come. And it's something, I'm going to tell you, it's something to see over there in them old wooden bleachers. A Mr. Willie, a Mr. Peg. These are people that I respected.
Sure.
Come to watch you play.
Yep.
And you're not their child. When I played basketball here at the high school, at home games, you couldn't find a seat. You can come in now at 8:30 and find you any kind of seat that you want.
Yep.
But getting back to the respect and everything, we I can remember in summertime, we made soap because we couldn't afford. It's not that we couldn't get, but we couldn't afford
Right.
the soap that white people bought.
Sure.
So our parents, our community learned how to share. And we've stopped doing that.
Sure.
But we made soap. We washed clothes in those big old black kettles.
Sure.
And I always had a washing machine.
You were talking about Austin. Okay. Tell the story
Thank
about
you
Austin.
for
That's
reminding
okay.
me.
That's all right.
Ray Gullett. Do you remember,
I remember
Chief Ray Gullett?
Chief Ray Gullett.
Okay. Austin and I would sneak in. I think it's the girls' dressing room now. It used to be the gym room.
Right.
But that big old window up there,
Yeah.
I think Ray Gullett left it unlocked on purpose.
Sure.
But Austin and I would sneak in, and we would shoot free throws in the dark with a flashlight.
Is that right?
And so Ray Gullett would come by here, and ain't nobody told him, and the flashlight ain't that bright.
Right.
And the windows was covered, but he knew.
Yeah.
He said, all right, it's time for y'all to go. And he would let us come in and shoot free throws.
Right.
And walk out. I mean, it's just different stories like that.
Sure.
People of all colors that have had many influences on your life.
Right.
And you can make something negative out of nothing.
Right. Of course.
But it's better to make something positive and make it great.
Let me ask you a question. This is a philosophical question. You know, you and the people, the folks in your community, grew up in a difficult time in our history of our nation.
Right.
Okay? But can you imagine a better place to grow up than a place like Kingston, taking all that into consideration?
I wouldn't, with the memories that I have of my family, my community, my school, and this environment, I would change a few things.
Right.
But I wouldn't give it to anybody.
Right.
I love it. I wouldn't change a thing.
It was the spirit of this place that made possible for you and others to go through what you went through and to achieve what you have achieved.
Absolutely. the little tidbits that Miss Gertrude and Miss Fletcher gave us, the ministers that guided us through a lot of different things.
Sure.
The veterans that reached out with a helping hand.
Yeah.
People in Mr. Willie Davis. I don't want to forget him.
Okay.
I am so sorry. But you know where the football field is, and the gentleman that lived in that White House with the big hedges, that was Mr. Willie Davis. And he was truly a hedge gardener because his hedges were perfect.
Right.
And he wouldn't let anybody mess with his hedges. But Mr. Willie, he was the first black to have a color TV.
Really?
And because he had been the secretary for a Masonic group in Knoxville for 17 years.
Okay.
He was secretary and he was a Grand Master.
Right.
I don't know what all those titles mean.
Sure.
But he would invite us on Sunday to come and lay in his floor and watch the Ed Sullivan Show.
Is that right?
Because it was a color TV. Those memories you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Those types of memories.
Sure.
Then my Uncle Goose got a color TV.
Right.
We would go up there and watch different things. But one of the things I remember, it was a black and white TV. It was old, but it worked.
Yeah.
Is coming home in the afternoon after school and watching, oh God, what was that show out of Knoxville? They had Tarzan and all of the, I can't remember the name of the show, but we would rush home.
Was it like Miss Marcia? Was that woman?
No, it wasn't Bob Brandy, and it wasn't, what was that? It came on every day except Saturday and Sunday, but it ran Monday through Friday.
Right.
And I can see the gentleman, he had dark hair and a mustache. I can't remember.
It wasn't Romper Room, was it?
No, it wasn't a kid's show. They showed movies like Tarzan, the Three Stooges, those types of movies.
Right, I remember.
My Friend Flicka.
Right.
I'm going back, really going back.
That's okay.
But those are the memories that I cherish.
Sure. Okay.
I hold dearly and close to my heart.
Right.
Because, like I said, I have tried to take everything that's negative that has happened in my life. And I've had some rough times.
Right.
I don't look like what I've been through.
Sure.
Because come November the 16th of this year, I will be 8 years cancer-free.
Is that right? Wow.
And God totally healed me.
Right.
I believe it beyond a shadow of a doubt, and can't nobody tell me no different.
Right.
Because I don't take any medicine. You know, some cancer patients, they have to take medicine every day.
Oh, yeah, sure. For the rest of their life.
And for the rest of their life. Some for 5 years, some for 3 years, whatever. I don't. I don't have to. I'm just so blessed. But I am so blessed for the friendships and the camaraderie. White, black, purple, or pink. I don't meet a stranger.
Sure.
And I am so proud of the lady that I have become. I haven't done everything right.
Well, nobody has.
No, nobody has.
Right.
I get things wrong every now and then. But
you say that as a who you are today is a direct reflection of your community and how you were raised in this community.
My family and my community.
Right.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing this information. We appreciate it.
Invite me back again.
I will. All right. Sounds good.
All right.